Hola,
Hola.
todos, ¿qué tal? ¿Quién tenemos por ahí? Hello to everybody.
Hola, Linda. Hola,
Linda
Wayne.
y Wayne están en el chat ya. Linda and Wayne are here. Hello to everyone else that's here. I think there were 70 people before we connected. Vamos a estar un poco bilingües hoy, mucho español y un poco de inglés.
Hola, Janet. Hola, Chris.
Janet and Chris are here. Lots of old friends. Wonderful. Marina, ¿qué has hecho hoy?
Pues mira, yo he empezado la mañana muy bien porque me he ido a hacer mi clase de pádel y me ha hecho correr un montón mi profe y he venido fuerte para trabajar.
Muy bien.
¿Tú
pues,
qué tal?
Yo también, porque he ido a la casa de campo con mi bici y he hecho mis 2 montañas. No, son colinas, más bien dicho. ¿no?
Muy bien.
I've done my 2 hills on the bike in the morning, so it felt fantastic. So welcome to everyone who's coming in. Everyone's saying hola, hola, hola. ¿Dónde estáis? Dinos en el chat dónde estáis.
Decidnos.
Decidnos en el chat dónde estáis. Tell us in the chat while we wait for everyone to come in. Where are you? ¿En qué país o en qué ciudad, si quieres? ¿Estáis alguien en España?
En Gijón tenemos.
Gijón, muy
Estocolmo.
bien. Estocolmo. Esto es como aprender.
Estoy en Teruel, pero si Teruel no
Wow.
existe.
See, look, so Jacob's in Teruel, and there's a famous thing in Spain. There was a famous campaign. Teruel no existe. Teruel doesn't exist. Porque nadie iba a Teruel. No one went to Teruel.
Y es muy bonito, además.
Y es tan bonito.
Exacto.
In fact, today we've got a question later on in the Q&A section. If you could only go to one place more in Spain, you only ever visited once, and we said somewhere else, but I could have said Teruel. Es muy especial, sí. California, eso es como aprender geografía.
Total.
Con YouTube, ¿no? Porque tenemos muchos sitios. Muy bien. Sí, Teruel existe. Eso, Jacob, you're there to prove it. All right, Cheltenham, República Checa. Muy bien, bienvenido. No solemos tener nadie de la República Checa.
Bueno, alguna persona tenemos, sí.
Muy bien.
Menos habitual.
Norfolk,
sí,
Oregon.
pero fantástico.
Muy bien, pues estamos muy representados, ¿no?
Sí.
Por todo el mundo.
Australia. Y Doug está en Sevilla.
Australia, a lo mejor. Doug, ¿estás en Sevilla? Hombre, qué suerte. Wow. Okay. So we've got some exciting things coming up today. It's going to be, as I said just now, but for people who've just joined, a bit bilingual, an awful lot of Spanish. But the really important bits, we'll make sure that we say in English too, in case there's people who hear at maybe lower levels. We don't want you to miss anything of the useful stuff, no?
So can you tell us what is in the menu today?
What's on the menu? Number 1, we have a coaching segment where we are going to look at the question, which we were asked actually recently in a different Q&A for our Platinum group, I think it was. But we think it's such a good question that we want to share it with everyone here on YouTube. Do you have to live there to get fluent? Do you have to live in Spain or South America to get properly fluent? I think it's a very important question. We're going to have a sort of live podcast. Marina and I are going to have one of our real Spanish conversations on some deep Ben and Marina history back in the late 90s. This is the last century.
Yes.
Intercambio related, how we met related. So that's going to be fun and revealing. And then we've got a lot of Q&A because such good questions, which will hopefully help you get super fluent as well. ¿Qué te parece?
Me parece perfecto. Menú completo.
Menú completo.
Primero, segundo y postre.
Eso. Primero, segundo y postre. And a special announcement about something new we've got available today, which hopefully will interest lots of you. That'll be coming up after the sort of live podcast segment. So we've got lots to do before then. Marina.
Cuéntame.
You can answer in Spanish, I think, and then what I will do is kind of sum up the important bits in English. So don't say too much because I'll get lost. No quiero perderme.
No hables demasiado, Marina. Eso es el mensaje.
Eso. Vale. Do you have to live there to get fluent? Do you have to live in Spain or South America somewhere or Latin America to properly get fluent in Spanish? Right, we've got some notes. Don't forget the notes.
No es esencial. Por supuesto, ayuda poder aprender por inmersión, pero no es imprescindible.
Sí, okay, so no, it helps a lot if you live there, Marina's saying, because you get all the immersion. Pero no es, I love this word, imprescindible. It isn't completely necessary. Imprescindible is a lovely word. So, okay, bien.
Y para mí,
it helps, but...
Sí, claro, aprendes de dos maneras distintas. Si vives en un lugar de habla hispana o si no. Son dos métodos de aprendizaje distintos.
Okay, so depending on whether you live in a Spanish-speaking country or not, the method is different. Okay, method one. Si vives en un país hispanohablante, if you live there, ¿qué?
Ahí te tienes que ver con todas las situaciones. Hablar, grupos, gente que te habla rápido, todo lo tienes que hacer de una.
Yeah. So yeah, when you're living there, you have to deal with everything all at once. I remember in the first weeks in Madrid with almost zero Spanish, having to get my residence permit, open a bank account, go to the pharmacy. It was, steep learning curve.
Exacto.
Yeah.
Pero
ahora, mira, mucha gente no vive aquí.
Claro.
O no vive en México o en Brasil o Sudamérica. Solo Jacob, que está en Teruel.
No, bueno, alguno más, ¿eh?
Sí,
bueno, Dag no vive
más.
en Sevilla, sí.
Vale, entonces, si no vives aquí, ¿cómo puedes llegar a ser fluido? So if you don't live in one of these countries like Spain,
sí.
What can you do to get fluent? And do we have proof that it's really possible?
Es totalmente posible. Tenemos un montón de estudiantes que han hecho este recorrido y en este caso, para mí, trabajaría un poquito más como como más estructurado.
Vale, okay, so first of all, we're very lucky, we've met lots and lots of Spanish students, and you're all wonderful people. And we have met people who speak incredibly well. Their Spanish is super fluent, really, really good. And we say, oh, have you lived in Spain? No. This is the first time I've been here. I've just been through all of your podcasts or something like that. And which is actually true. We're not just sort of making this up. It's completely true. People who've just studied on their own, used our podcast, supplemented it with lots of other material, but done all of their studying where they are. And they are super fluent speaking. Not just listening and reading and so on, but speaking as well. And we'll get to one of the big secrets in a minute. So, Marina, you say break it up into sections.
Sí.
Háblame más de
Vale,
esto.
pues entonces para mí lo haríamos más estructurado. Trabajaríamos mucho la escucha al principio, la comprensión. Cuando tenemos un buen nivel de comprensión, me iría al habla con un intercambio. Y bueno, sí. Me señala aquí, ven. La escucha nos ayuda no solo a comprender, sino a aprender vocabulario y a fijar estructuras, ¿no? en nuestra mente, que luego podemos repetir cuando hablamos.
Yeah, so one of the key things we've noticed with people who get really fluent without living in a Spanish-speaking country is the amount of listening that they're doing. And as a video we put out earlier this week, listening equals fluency, it's really important because that's where you get your vocabulary from. That's where it's almost like osmosis. The language comes in. It's how babies learn, as we've said, and it's absolutely key. The other thing that we've said is, hang on a minute, because I think we jumped something.
Sí, perdón. No he seguido el orden.
You have to fill your life with Spanish every single day.
Eso no lo habíamos dicho todavía.
¿No?
Exacto. Poner un poco de español en tu vida de manera continua ayuda muchísimo en este proceso.
Hay que ser un poco obsesivo. Yo soy experto en eso.
No hace falta ser como Ben. No hace falta.
Ayuda. It helps, ¿ok? Ser un poco obsesivo. Un poquito o mucho.
Sí.
Por ejemplo, Marina está aprendiendo algo ahora que se llama...
Movimiento somático.
Movimiento somático. Y yo estoy aprendiendo a pintar. Y Marina, todo el día, movimiento somático, movimiento somático, movimiento somático. Y Ben, todo el día, painting.
Exagerado.
Y fue así cuando yo empecé a aprender español. Todo el día, español, diccionario, tele, escucha. So yeah, being a bit obsessive helps. Like
yo
Marina
creo que se puede...
Like Marina is now, hang on, let me finish translating a sec. Like Marina is, perdone, que te he cortado. Marina is a bit now learning her somatics, and I am with painting. It's about mileage in a way. They say that with painting, you've got to paint miles and miles of paper. So
tenemos aquí
the more time,
cada
the
hora
better.
cuenta.
Cada hora cuenta. That sounds a bit kind of right over the top. Más cosas.
Sí, el siguiente paso sería un intercambio. Claro, la gente que vive en un país de habla hispana esto lo tiene fácil porque lo tiene disponible. Entonces, para la gente que no vive en un país de habla hispana, esto es muy importante. Llegado un momento en que nuestra escucha es lo suficientemente fluida, que comprendemos, tenemos un buen nivel de comprensión, tenemos que saltar a hablar.
Yeah, so super important to, if you can, get an intercambio. Tell us in the chat, please, who has an intercambio, who has 2 intercambios, who has 3 intercambios, because some people do. So please drop that in the chat. And you could also put in the chat that you'd like an intercambio, but have been feeling a bit nervous about it, because that's very common as well. So
Debbie dice sí,
Debbie's
solo
got
uno.
only one, but one's enough, right? One in Madrid, says Steve. So yeah, keep it coming. We'd like to know that, because a lot of our students do get an intercambio. There we go. Jacob's got loads. Excellent.
Janet tiene 2.
Janet's got 2.
Muy bien.
Carl as well has got 2. It makes all the difference in the world. But Marina said it's kind of important. If you can get your listening up first, it does help a lot. Okay. I mean, when can you start having an intercambio? Whenever you want.
Really, whenever you want.
But for sure at intermediate.
One of the keys is that the person that you have the intercambio with has a similar level to yours, because otherwise you will talk more in one language than the other.
We've got a question about that later, so we'll go more into that later on.
Dice, mi mujer es madrileña, ¿es igual? Bueno, ahí tienes una oportunidad buenísima para hablar.
Susan, una lástima, no tengo ninguna.
Pues Susan,
conociéndote, que yo creo que tú tienes ganas con las cosas que haces, necesitas un intercambio.
Mira, Beth es una crack porque dice, tengo una en Ciudad de México, una Argentina, pero que es en Argentina, pero que es de Uruguay, y uno que es de Ecuador. O sea, tiene aquí mezcla de acentos total.
Beth has covered the South American continent. Pretty good. Sue's got 2. Right, Kathy, me gustaría encontrar uno. Muy bien. Drop in the chat, please, where you found your intercambio. So we know conversationexchange.com, for example, is very common. But for the people out there thinking, I want one, but I don't know where to find one, please, if you've got one, in the chat now, say where you found it. And you could even say Conversation Exchange, it works really well, or it's fantastic, something like that. So I think that would be very useful for everyone. Discord,
no lo conocíamos,
interesting.
esto.
Well, I mean, it's like an online sort of forum-y
vale,
kind
yo no
of
lo
thing.
conocía, perdón.
Conversation Exchange, says Steve.
Tandem,
sí. Okay.
Sí, que habíamos.
Conversation Exchange really works, says Wayne Brown. So if in doubt, you can start there. Okay. Lingo Bongo. What a great name. Yeah. All right. We'll carry on here.
Sí.
Next,
últimas tips. 1, si puedes hacerte un viaje a un país hispanohablante cuando puedas, fantástico.
Travel to a Spanish-speaking country whenever you can.
Y bueno, pues llena tu vida de español, películas, libros, series, audios, podcasts, lo que quieras.
Yeah, fill your life with Spanish, videos, series, films, books, radio, newspapers. Just fill your life with Spanish. In a way that you enjoy. Es tan importante disfrutarlo, ¿verdad? Entonces, si hay algo que no estás disfrutando, déjalo. Y buscar algo que te guste. Es muy importante.
Si ven es de los que tira el libro por la ventana.
Chuck the grammar book out the window if it's driving you mad and go and do some Spanish that you enjoy. It's so important. And maybe the grammar comes back later on, but very important. Okay. Harlem Madrid says he finds his intercambios in a dating app. Absolutely. Why not? I mean, that's a sort of version of how I found this intercambio here. Well, there weren't dating apps at the time, weren't any apps at the time, but I think the motivation was not dissimilar. Anyway, we'll get to that right now. No?
Right now. Espera, que nos falta un tip.
The final tip for getting fluent from wherever you are, in Spain, in Mexico, in Argentina, in Cheltenham, in wherever.
En Teruel.
In Teruel, in England, in America, is...
No te rindas nunca.
No te rindas nunca. Never give up, especially if you're stuck on one of these famous sort of language learning plateaus. don't give up. You end up getting off them when you don't give up and you go better, faster. Okay. Woof. Ready. So
Ready.
are you all convinced? Os hemos
¡Ave
convencido.
María!
Have we convinced you that it
Nos
hang on.
dice, usted sí que ha envejecido desde la última vez que los vi en YouTube hace 8 años. Gracias, David.
David, yes. We have
8 años,
we have got a little older since you last saw us
claro,
8 years ago.
eso pasa.
¿Qué se le va a hacer? ¿Qué se le va a hacer? What are you going to do about it? But anyway, your comments made us laugh. I don't know about very happy, but it's made us laugh. No.
Hombre, hay vídeos nuestros con 30 años o sea...
Oh yeah, we've got videos from 18 years ago, and if you want to see,
Sí.
you know,
Ahí sí que se
the
nota la
aging
diferencia.
process. Pero mira qué jóvenes, de espíritu y de cuerpo, vamos.
Y de ganas.
Ya está. Right. After that little segue, it's time for part 2, sort of live podcast,
Venga.
deep dive conversation kind of thing. Are you ready? So,
I'm ready.
lots of the questions that we got sent in were about intercambios. So we're going to pick that as a subject, right? Because Marina and I are going to tell you now a story, the story of how we first met and how we became intercambios. And that led on to where we are today, married,
2 kids.
2 kids, notes of Spanish, all that sort of thing. But it all started with 2 people looking for an intercambio, apparently, because there weren't any dating apps then. So,
Ben, cuéntame, ¿cuántos intercambios has tenido tú?
wait a minute. I'll get there. But I'm lost now. Me has despistado.
Perdóname.
Okay.
Por salirme del guión.
She always says to me, Ben, when we do these live things, don't ask me any surprise questions.
Mira, ahora te pongo yo ahí. Ben siempre le encanta.
Y me lo hace a mí.
Le encanta sacarme.
Te voy a pillar luego.
Venga, vale.
Venga, so we're going to have a conversation now in Spanish about how we first met. And we've got questions for you to listen out for, 2 challenge questions, right? So listen carefully to see if you can get the answer to these questions. We met twice before we started an intercambio, right? There were 2 occasions that led to us saying, do you want to do an intercambio? They were 3 months apart, right? Where was the first place we met and where was the second place we met, right? For extra bonus points, this is difficult because it's not your average vocabulary. What did Marina throw at Ben in the second place to get his attention? If some of you know this because you've heard it before, don't put the answer in the chat yet. We want people to listen. So we met twice. Where were those places? What did Marina throw at Ben to get his attention? Spanish conversation starting in 20 seconds. One more thing to say, don't worry if you only understand 1%, 2%, or 3% of this conversation, okay? We all start out understanding 2% of conversations in another language. Me in Spanish, Marina in English, no? So even 2% is a victory, okay? So don't be discouraged if you find it hard to understand. Are you ready? You got listening out for those questions. So, Marina, entonces...
Bueno, ¿cuántos intercambios has tenido tú?
¿Cuántos intercambios he tenido? No está en el guión.
Ya, pero de pronto se me ha ocurrido preguntar esto.
No, como 3 o 4.
Vale.
Y luego conocí a ti y ya está.
Te conocí a ti.
Te conocí a ti y intercambio de por vida. Pero, ¿dónde nos conocimos por primera vez?
Vale, pues
primera vez.
Yo tenía una profe de inglés maravillosa que se llama Jo, que es una amiga nuestra.
Sí, ¿dónde?
Que ella fue quien nos enseñó ese truco que os enseñamos del 5 times trick.
Sí, entonces,
para aprender vocabulario.
Tenías una profesora, Jo. ¿Dónde?
En una academia en Madrid que se llama International House.
Vale, entonces tú tenías clases en International House con Jo y de ahí, ¿cómo nos conocimos?
Vale, pues un día Jo estaba enferma
¿Sí?
Y Ben vino a sustituir a mi querida profe Jo.
Ya, y entonces yo tuve que hacer la sustitución. Llegué a la clase y yo, británico, llegué a la hora y claro, nadie, ningún estudiante.
Era un intensivo de 2 horas y media.
Sí.
Y todo el mundo llegaba tarde.
Pero llegó primero, o primera, una chica, Marina. Y Marina y yo estuvimos solos en la clase durante...
¿Media hora?
Media hora.
Casi 20 minutos, seguro.
Hablando. Entonces, clase particular en inglés fue
Ujú.
para Marina y charlamos mucho, ¿no?
Ujú.
Y no me acuerdo, pero yo creo que pensé, qué chica más maja. ¿Tú te acuerdas de eso? ¿Qué profe más majo?
Claro, hombre,
Seguro, hombre.
majísimo.
Entonces, terminó la clase, Marina se fue y ya está, nada. Pero 3 meses más tarde
Ujú.
nos conocimos otra
Nos
vez.
encontramos.
Nos
Ya nos
encontramos, es verdad.
conocíamos. Conocíamos es la primera vez que te encuentras.
Nos encontramos por segunda
Ujú.
vez, ¿no? ¿Y qué pasó?
Bueno, pues nos encontramos en un bar que yo iba con mis amigas de la universidad, era donde terminábamos la noche siempre, en Alonso Martínez, que era un sitio de flamenquito y fino,
Sí,
que se
eso es.
llamaba Catavino.
Entonces, tú estabas en este bar, Catavino,
Con mis amigas de la
tus
universidad.
amigas.
Sí.
Y yo estaba con mis amigos de International House,
Ujú.
otros profesores. Todo el mundo bebiendo fino, ese que es el vino de Andalucía, sherry, ¿no?
Ujú.
Y todo el mundo bastante contento. Y yo hablando con mis amigos y de repente, ¡pum! ¡Pum!
Pero si ni te diste cuenta,
¡Claro!
eso es mentira, eso te lo estás inventando.
Bueno,
No se dio cuenta.
no me dio cuenta.
No, eso me
Bueno,
lo dijiste tú a mí, que no te habías dado cuenta.
Marina me estaba tirando huesos de aceituna.
Claro, yo
¿Te lo crees?
vi a
¿Os lo
Ben,
creéis?
que dije, ay, este chico es el que me dio clase. Ya, bueno, una noche larga, yo nunca bebo mucho, pero esa noche había bebido un poquito más de lo normal y le tiré unos huesos de aceituna.
Sí.
Pero ni se
Entonces,
enteró, ¿eh?
bueno,
Ni se enteró.
me tiraba huesos de
2 o 3,
aceituna.
¿eh? No os creáis que le tiré todo el plato.
Parece que yo no me di cuenta, entonces, porque había tomado 2 o 3 vinos solo.
O por mi puntería.
O porque Marina, sí, no sabe tirar muy bien huesos de aceituna.
No.
Y entonces creo que igual viniste a hablar conmigo, ¿no?
Sí, como los huesos de aceituna no funcionaron, tuve que buscar otra estrategia.
Entonces yo digo, hombre, sí, Marina de la clase, qué bien. Y empezamos a hablar. Y al final de la noche, pues uno, no sé quién, dijo, ¿tienes un intercambio?
Aquí,
Sí,
madre
porque
mía.
yo soy muy, ¿cómo se dice? Tímido.
Tímido,
Muy
sí,
tímido
el que
con las
morro.
chicas, sí. Sí. Entonces Marina dice, ¿tienes un intercambio? Y yo, no. Y compartimos números de
¿Teléfono?
teléfono y pues nos llamamos después, quedamos en un bar en Alonso Martínez también, la cafetería Nueva Barbería, no, ese es en Lavapiés. Bueno,
No, en Santa Bárbara.
Cervecería Santa Bárbara,
Ujú.
sí, cerca del metro
Que es un sitio
de
como de toda la vida.
Alonso Martínez. Empezamos a hacer un intercambio y de ahí, the rest is history, ¿cómo se dice?
El resto es historia.
El resto es historia, eso es, sí. Bueno, yo creo que ya.
Ya.
Right, there it is, the story of how Ben and Marina met. Tell us in the chat, did you get the answer to the two questions? Where's the first place we met, the second place we met, and what was Marina throwing? That's the tricky question. What was Marina throwing at Ben unsuccessfully because she's had too many finos to hit me with?
No necesito tomarme muchos finos.
No. Anyway,
seguro que no había tomado muchos.
This was a long time ago. We're much more responsible now. So, in the chat, tell us the first place we met, the second place we met, and what Marina was throwing at Ben. Did anyone get it? We're waiting. There's a bit of a lag with YouTube. Let's see. Okay.
Muy bien,
muy
Steve.
bien, Steve.
10 out of
Wayne,
10.
muy bien. Douglas says
Flechas de Cupido.
Cupid arrows. So,
sí, pero no.
Oh yeah, lots of people got it. Great. Okay. So
No, el que no lo enteró fue.
The first place we met was International House because Marina's teacher was ill and I was doing a substitution class. Marina turned up ages before everyone else and she was probably late as well, but not too late. Second place was in a bar. It doesn't exist anymore, called Catavino. Sadly, it was an absolute classic Andaluz bar.
Hemos ido, vamos, años y años y años.
There. Anyway, and yes, what did Marina throw at me? Huesos de aceituna.
Lo que hay que hacer para ligar, madre mía.
Okay, repeat that phrase. It's a great Spanish. Lo que hay que hacer para ligar. What you have to do to ligar is, I mean, in sort of slang English from the UK, you'd say to pull. I don't know how you'd say that in slightly more polite English anymore, but to get yourself a member, member of the opposite or
Esa
whatever.
es
Flirt. Ligar is
eso.
flirt, but it's not actually like beyond flirting.
No.
It's just flirting.
Bueno, sí, ligar es.
And well, okay.
Ligar es. No.
Is the kind of the attraction part.
Sí, no sé.
It's not the success part.
No, o sea, ligar puede haber éxito o puede no haber éxito.
All right,
claro.
flirting. Okay, so it might work, it might not work. So ligar is to be flirting with intentions.
Shut up,
anyway,
Chris.
Chat up. There we go. Thank you, Chris, to chat someone up. All right. Tell us in the chat, last question, then we're going to get on to the Q&A. How much of that conversation did you understand in percentage? We're very curious to know. If it's 1%, that's already a huge victory. If it's 100, that's amazing. You've been doing lots of listening. So where are you? Stick in the chat a figure of how much of our conversation you think you understood. Okay, we've got 80, 25, 30, 80, 75, 100%, Jacob. Well, Jacob, juegas con ventaja porque estás en Teruel. Yeah, you're very good. 90, 25, 20. So look, 30, 20. This is wonderful. And if it's over 50, amazing. If it's under 50, then I think you get double points for being here.
Cherry says 5%, so congratulations.
Cherry, you get the medal, because if you're still here at 5%, it means tienes ganas de aprender. You've got real desire to learn. And if you carry on like this, that 5% will be 30% very soon, 70% very soon. Especially if you keep listening to our podcast, you're going to understand us a whole lot better very quickly. So massive congratulations to everyone. Whatever your percentage
Vaya
is.
ligón eres, Ben, pero qué va. Pero
James,
la que
vaya
me
ligón.
Fui yo.
What a flirt I am. I wish, James. It wasn't one of my strong points. I was a bit shy in my 20s. But anyway, Marina's la ligona. She's
no, que va.
The flirter.
Lo fui en ese momento, no sé por qué.
Okay, so how to get your listening up to 100%. So a quick special announcement, then we're going to jump into the Q&A. We've got some wonderful questions. So we're releasing something very special today, which is called the Inner Circle Collection, which is basically, as some of you know, we had a membership called the Inner Circle for a couple of years, which we closed at the end of December. And while it was open, we were making twice a month really, really good videos of very sort of what we call deep dive conversations, which would go into a huge range of topics, which could be Spanish culture. It could be something with like Picasso and El Greco's relationship with Toledo, health, what seafood, the amazing things it does for your brain, which we would relate to Laurie Lee in his book, When He Walked Across Spain, all sorts of really interesting stuff. And when we closed the Inner Circle, we realized we've got this treasure trove here. And 90% of our students haven't seen any of it. What can we do with it? So we put it together into something called the Inner Circle Collection. It's the best of the best videos from there. Absolutely ideal for intermediate and advanced students who want to get off those plateaus and jump up to another level. It's going to give you all the listening you need, really interesting topics. And we've added exercises to help you learn all the vocab. We've added kind of deep dive material, background material. So maybe music videos or articles to read around the subject of each video, so you get even more out of it. Marina's been rewatching them over the past couple of weeks with a huge grin on her face.
Yes, they are. I think they are good. I think it's like the best of the best we've done.
Yeah.
They made me smile. Like we were in Toledo, and it was very nice to see the atmosphere, the time we had, the video, everything.
Yeah. So we've wrapped that up into a special pack. We've also, there will be some bonuses, for example, a group Zoom call later on in April. There's a couple of coaching videos that go deeper into how to get more fluent, how to get more confident, how to break out of your safety zone so you can go even further with your Spanish. So all of that is the Inner Circle Collection. I'm going to send out an email after this with a link to that. I'll put a link in the chat here. You don't have to go and look at that right now, but it's there. I'll put it in at the end of this as well. And now we're going to dive into the Q&A. But if you want to do that thing we've been talking about, get fluent from wherever you are. This is going to be an amazing resource because it really is the best of the best of what we've done over the last couple of years. Okay, that's the Inner Circle
Mira,
collection.
Tracy nos pregunta, are there also transcripts?
What there are is, no, there aren't transcripts because they all have subtitles. Okay, and you can choose whether to turn the subtitles on or off. Some people will watch them first with the subtitles, then without the subtitles. So you've got that. And what we also do is to pick out all the really useful words and phrases we know you need to know and list those under each of the videos.
So they have more or less the format of other worksheets we've done in the past, except they have the addition of the further materials, no?
Yeah, the extra materials to take you further by going off to watch a really interesting YouTube video on the subject, things like that. Okay, right. I will drop a link in for that at the end as well and send you all an email about it later on. All right. Questions, Marina.
We have a lot of interesting questions today. Yes.
We had about 60 or 70 people sent in questions, right? It's impossible for us to get to everyone, for which we apologize hugely. So we've picked a selection that we hope.
Also, some of the questions were repeated by different people.
Right,
so
exactly. There was some overlap, so we hope we'll more or less cover a lot of people like that. And possibly we'll be able to use some questions in future videos we make and things like that. So let's see how many we can get through in 29 minutes. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We're going to start with Britta, who says, again, we're going to do this a bit bilingually because a lot of the questions came in English and we want to make sure everyone understands the answers. So Britta says, at the moment, my biggest challenge is to get more fluent speaking Spanish and to broaden my active vocabulary. Okay, so broadening active vocabulary while being fluent, I guess that means the vocabulary that you've got right there ready to use in any given moment, no? So, well, top of our list was you need to be looking at the Inner Circle collection because that is exactly about broadening your vocabulary massively.
Totally.
¿Qué más? What else?
So listen to get, paying attention to the vocabulary when you listen to a podcast or you watch a film. And from experience, when you want to learn a vocabulary, from what our students say, it's good to listen twice because it's the way you fix the vocabulary.
Yeah. So, I mean, some people might think, oh, I've got to listen to a podcast twice.
Yeah.
Then
Ben wouldn't do
that
in 100 years, but I would.
Marina would. So it depends on what kind of learner you are. One way is to listen to things twice. The other way, because again, the osmosis effect, it really does work. What Marina always says is when you're trying to learn vocabulary that you want to be active, not too much at once.
Yes. 4 or 5 words at once. Never try to learn a long list of 20 or 30 words because it's very difficult to learn them properly with examples or really knowing the meaning.
Yeah, when I learned French at school, they'd send you home with like a list of 40 words and say learn this by tomorrow for a test. And you'd learn it, but they'd all fly out.
Maybe it works with fruit and the colors.
No, but it didn't work.
But not with other kind of words that you need to learn the subtlety of the words.
How do you say subtlety in?
Sutileza. La sutileza del significado.
Or matiz.
Matices, sí.
I love that word, matiz. Sort of the subtle part of something. All right. And the other way to make it really active is what we've talked about many times, the 5 times trick.
That our friend Joe taught us.
Who we mentioned earlier in the Spanish conversation, taught us this. Apparently it's a linguistic thing or rule or scientifically proven or something that if you use a piece of vocab 5 times, it will stick in your brain. So I would go out and hear vocab on the street and I'd come back and ask Marina about it. And then I would invent any excuse to use it 5 times. I would say even ridiculous things. And it absolutely helped fix it in my brain as active vocabulary. Right. Frankie says, now we had quite a few questions about this, which was very interesting for us.
It must be in the newspapers a lot because we had at least
4 or 5
or more, I would say.
And the overall question put by Frankie is, what do most Spanish people really think about English or American people going to live in Spain? So I'm guessing that there's sort of some negative press coming about Spanish people being grumpy about people from other countries coming to live in Spain at the moment, particularly Brits or Americans maybe. So yeah, we did have questions about this.
So our perception on this
Yes.
this is our perception.
Entonces, venga, Spanish practice.
A ver, creo que en general la gente en España tiene muy buena actitud hacia los extranjeros y no tiene ningún problema. Incluso les gusta hablar con gente inglesa, americana, aprender de su cultura, de su país. En general creo que la gente tiene buen talante. Ahora, ¿qué ocurre? Que en ciertos lugares es verdad que el precio de la vivienda está subiendo mucho por gente que viene de fuera, especialmente en sitios como Málaga, Valencia, incluso Madrid, que es una ciudad súper popular en este momento. Entonces, esto puede generar malestar porque a la gente que vive en España, que tiene sueldos más bajos, le dificulta mucho el acceso a la vivienda. Y yo creo que esto es lo que hay por detrás.
So, to summarize what Marina said, so some of the negative press, and again, I think the focus here is on the word press, because this is a lot from the newspapers possibly exaggerating things to sell web page views or newspapers, is that people say it's forcing up house prices. This seems to be more the case, or more the culprit seems to be more Airbnb. There was a huge, when Airbnb arrived in Spain, there was a boom. Everybody who had a flat they didn't use much, or a lot of empty flats are around, they stuck on Airbnb. And a huge amount of the sort of free flat space in Spain got turned into Airbnb properties, and was taken off the rental market for normal Spanish people to use. And that did have an effect on house prices and also the availability. Obviously, less supply, same amount of demand, that prices go up.
More expensive
so
prices.
We think that the newspapers exaggerate this, and it's not that bad. But what we do know is that the Spanish people are incredibly friendly to people who come and live here. I think that's what we would say, and that you shouldn't worry about it. If your desire is to come and live in Spain, then come and enjoy that amazing experience, no? Marina said, la gente, a phrase I wrote down here, I picked out, la gente tiene buen talante. What does that mean?
Talante, como buena actitud.
A good attitude. So Spanish people have got a good attitude towards pretty much everything, you know. They can be a bit moany sometimes, but in this case, I don't think it's a problem. So I say, go for it. Don't worry about it. Go for it. Don't read the newspapers when they moan about these things so much. Follow-on questions from Frankie. How easy is it to become friends with the Spanish without marrying one? Which is always an option, or not, I don't know.
Maybe he's already married then.
Maybe he's already married, okay. All right. So how easy is it? Tell us in Spanish.
Vale, pues creo que no es difícil, pero también creo que es muy importante ir al lugar adecuado. Es decir, tienes que ir a algún lugar donde haya gente española, pues a una actividad, a hacer un deporte, a una clase de pintura, yo qué sé, a lo que te guste hacer, a una clase de costura, lo que quieras, pero tienes que salir del círculo de gente de expats, ¿no?
Sí. Okay, so Marina says it can be quite easy if you join groups focused around interests. So, for example, you go and join a museum group, or a walking group, or a painting group, or a sewing group. Or if you can find that, you're going to be welcomed without any doubt. You really are, because people with shared interests are always super friendly for a start. So you have to break out of the kind of typical expat group if you want to. There's nothing wrong with that either, at all. You can come and live in Spain. All we really need is people to hang out with and have fun with, whether it's expats or Spanish people. But if you actively want to get involved with Spanish people, one really good way is to join any kind of like shared interest group or activity, and you're going to be welcomed. Okay, final question of this three-part question. Also, Ben, after being immersed in Spanish life and culture for so many years, has speaking become instinctive for you, or do you still need to think about the correct way to say something before you speak? It's instinctive. Something funny occurred to me, that the only time I still need to think about the correct way to say something before I speak is when I speak to my wife and it's a delicate subject and there's a good chance I might put my foot in it. In that
Qué
case,
malo es.
whether I'm speaking in English or Spanish, I need to think very carefully before I open my
Qué
mouth.
malo es.
Because I do have a meto la pata bastante, ¿verdad? I put my foot in it.
A
Still,
veces hablamos de más, es lo que
yeah,
ocurre.
we speak too much. I speak too much sometimes. So, yes, it becomes instinctive, and it will for all of you. And it's just like a surprise. One day you realize Spanish is flowing in. There's no translation process in my head anymore. I just understand it without the kind of secondary process, and it comes out without having to think about it as well. At an advanced level, that will happen to everybody here if you persist with your Spanish. So I really encourage you to carry on to that point. It's completely possible. All right. Courtney
Courtney
says,
nos habla de un tema muy interesante.
is the siesta still alive? When I was a student at University of Salamanca in 1989, I would have the comida with the family and then take a long nap, which I look forward to every day. Then I'd walk back to university. I wonder about these days and businesses. What's the situation? Tell us in Spanish.
Vale, pues claro, 1989 en Salamanca, mira, hasta la universidad tenía horario partido. Esto no ocurre ya. Mucha gente tiene horario continuo y no te da tiempo a lo mejor a ir a casa para comer y tener un rato para echarte la siesta. Entonces, mucha menos gente se echa la siesta hoy en día. Y de hecho, me ha hecho mucha gracia esta pregunta porque ayer yo estaba buscando todavía materiales adicionales para poner alguno de nuestros vídeos y justo hay un material que hacen como una encuesta en Cataluña, en Barcelona y en Andalucía para ver si hay diferencias entre la siesta en Cataluña y la siesta en Andalucía. Y luego sacan conclusiones y es muy divertido.
Okay, so quick translation. So is it the same these days? Yes and no. Marina was saying, look, even back in 1989, even the university had, how did you say?
Sí, horario partido.
Horario partido, split timetable, leaving a couple of hours for lunch and siesta. In businesses these days, that isn't the case. So you're not going to find business people having siestas or university students. But
university students, yes.
Well, probably all day long, actually.
But no, I don't think you would have classes normally in the morning and in the afternoon. You would have a long stretch either in the morning or in the afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. So, but you know, people who go on holiday, or Spanish people, when it's hot, anyone will have a siesta if they can, because you just need it to get through the day and the night. Or when people are on holiday or the weekends, people will have siestas. Marina?
Yo soy de la experta de la siesta, me encanta.
Still grabs the siesta whenever she can. During the week, after lunch, before picking up the kids.
10 minutes.
Me voy a tumbar 20 minutos.
Sí,
is a phrase
una o dos veces a la semana o ninguna.
Often heard in this house. Yeah.
Pero mira, Kearney, en la universidad yo tenía un horario corto y llegaba a casa tipo 1:30 y me echaba lo que se llama la siesta del cordero.
A la 1:30.
Antes de comer.
Yeah. So Marina had a very short university timetable and she would arrive home at 1:30, which is obviously long before lunch in this country, and she would have the siesta del cordero.
Me encanta.
The lamb's siesta, which is when you have your siesta before lunch, not after lunch. She probably had one after lunch as well.
If I could, maybe.
I don't think I've ever had the siesta del cordero. It's just not
it's not
in my DNA. I couldn't do it. Finally, Marina mentioned in a circle collection, one of the videos is on tópicos, on stereotypes. We kind of dive into how many of them are still true and whatever. It's a very fun video. And the background material for that.
Yeah, I've mentioned that.
But not in English.
Okay, sorry.
I'm translating just in case. We don't want anyone to miss it. There's a great video about the difference between the siesta in Andalusia and the siesta in Barcelona. So anyway, that's in the Inner Circle collection. Right. Linda says,
hola, Ben y Marina. Me gustaría saber cómo decir que cualquiera de las opciones me parece bien cuando me piden elegir entre dos o más opciones. En inglés diría algo como it doesn't matter to me, you choose. I'm fine either way. I'm okay with whatever the group decides. I'll go with the majority.
Okay, so when Linda says there's two options and the group are saying which restaurant should we go to, which plan should we do, whatever, and they ask you to decide which one or to say what you want, what can you say in Spanish?
Ok.
And being polite.
Un momentito porque no termina. Sigue ella y dice, he oído frases como no me importa y me da igual, pero suenan fuertes. No quiero transmitir indiferencia, sino amabilidad y flexibilidad. Gracias por vuestros consejos.
Okay, so she says, I've heard phrases such as no me importa, me da igual, but they sound strong. I don't want to transmit indifference. I want to sound friendly and flexible. Thanks for your consejos, your advice. So, Marina, what could Linda say in this situation, or anyone say in this situation?
Vale, Linda, explicarte que esas frases en este contexto no son fuertes, ¿vale? Podrían serlo en otro contexto, decir, no me importa, podrían serlo, pero en este es cuando te dan a elegir entre dos opciones, son perfectamente válidas y amables, ¿vale?
So, no me importa and me da igual are completely fine and friendly in this situation.
Sí, pero tenemos otras opciones.
More options.
Como cualquiera de las dos opciones es buena para mí.
Either of the options is good for me.
Me es lo mismo o me da lo mismo, que no sé si es...
Me es lo mismo. It's the same to me. That's perfectly fine.
Tú eliges.
You choose.
Lo que decida la mayoría me parece perfecto.
So, say that again.
Lo que decida la mayoría me parece perfecto.
So, whatever the majority decides is fine for me. Okay, thank you, Linda. Jacqueline says, bridging the gap, my big challenge is bridging the gap from intermediate to advanced. I think with self-learning, it's hard to judge your level accurately. So for this reason, I'm going back to lessons with my Spanish teacher after a 1-year break. So the question then is how to bridge the gap from intermediate to advanced. I think that is a very good question. Yeah. And I think lots of people probably share that question. So first bit of advice I had was don't worry too much about knowing your level, unless it's important because you need to know what course to go on to or what grammar books to buy, exam to take, but people will guide you with those things. So I think it's important not to, if you don't need to, not to obsess too much. Am I B2? Am I C1? Am I C2? Whatever. I think just keep going, first of all, no? And if going back to your lessons is what you think with the tutor is what you think will provide the biggest boost to your Spanish, then fantastic, go for it. The key is to do something, and you're doing something, so that's great. What else have we got, Marina?
Yes, the jump from upper intermediate to advanced can be tough.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
so you have to keep on going to get through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the story I told a few minutes ago about, or the situation I mentioned, like one day listening suddenly became automatic and speaking suddenly became sort of easy.
And groups become possible.
Meals with Marina's family, all talking at once.
Or with Ben's family.
Suddenly became possible without getting a headache after 2 minutes. And the way you get there is persistence and perseverance. So Marina says it's tough to get from upper intermediate to advanced, but you know, I don't think
it's not impossible.
Tough or impossible. It can. You might want it to go faster, but that's what we said earlier. This is about putting the time in and just not stopping and enjoying yourself. Okay, so never give up. Be patient.
Be patient because sometimes the time you put in doesn't show at the beginning.
Yeah.
So as we've have a video where we talk about plateaus, you study, but it doesn't seem that you are making any jump, and you continue in this plateau, and suddenly, boom, you get a boost. No.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you have to wait because it comes when
you least expect it.
It comes unexpectedly.
Yeah. It's very annoying like that. It doesn't come on
magic.
Demand. 2 more things. Vale. We mentioned already today, fill your life with Spanish that you enjoy. That helps make the jump faster for sure. And listen, if you're wondering how to get from intermediate to advanced, it means you're already either intermediate or upper intermediate. And frankly, if you can get there, you can absolutely get to advanced. a lot of people give up at the beginner stage. They'll start Spanish for 3 days or 1 month and say, it's too difficult, I give up.
Or 2 years, as
Or
we
2
have
years.
later. Yeah.
If you're intermediate or upper intermediate, you are going to get to advanced. It's just a question of more time. You took time to get to intermediate. Don't give up now. So you'll get there. No doubt at all.
So also maybe at this point, it would be good to, for making that jump, to work a little bit on grammar. We mentioned that. Either maybe taking an exam or getting a grammar book and do some exercises.
Or don't let us put that off. It's not 100% necessary. Some people become completely fluent without
the
books.
grammar. That's true.
There was a point where I did the intermediate. I did one of the Delhi exams, and it helped because it helped put all my grammar in order because I had been sort of putting it on one side until then. So that's another option as well, if you think you want to do that, but you don't have to. Okay, lots of people hear grammar and run for the hills. That's completely fine. Fill your life with Spanish, enjoy it, never give up. You will become advanced for sure. Okay, Wayne says Spain by slow trains so that you can see the countryside passing by. ¿Puedo contestar en español para empezar?
Luego yo te traduzco.
Yo he tenido la experiencia de ir de Madrid a Barcelona en AVE, que es el tren de alta velocidad, y sentir frustración, porque va tan rápido que no puedes ver nada. Y ves un pueblo bonito por la ventana, otro pueblo, y dices, quiero ver más despacio. So yeah, I've had the experience of going on the super fast, high-speed AVE trains and just feel like, this is too fast. I want to see all these beautiful villages in the middle of nowhere. What can be done? Is it possible anymore to go slowly on a train?
Yo lo único que se me ocurre, Wayne, es que cojas el cercanías. Lo que pasa es que el cercanías normalmente pues no va a paisajes tan bonitos, ¿no? En algún sitio sí, pero en poquitos sitios normalmente son pues las zonas cercanas a las ciudades, ¿no? No tienen tanto interés.
So,
al norte de Barcelona sí, porque van justo por la costa, sube el cercanías y es muy bonito.
Point. Okay, so the cercanías trains are the regional, the commuter trains, which kind of take, commuters from places close to big cities into work and out every day or whatever. In Madrid, they call them cercanías. In Barcelona, they call them rodalies. Rodalies, okay? And there's one which goes to Mataró, from Barcelona to Mataró, which is like an hour north up the coast from Barcelona. It's the best train ever because it goes right along the coast. In fact, it's so close to the beach and to the gleaming, shining Mediterranean some of the time that you can literally look down and see everyone in their bathing suits and bikinis on the beach right underneath the train.
That's why Ben likes it.
I like to look at the sea, Marina. Anyway, I love that train. I went on it quite often because I had a friend in close to Mataró. Best train in the world. So go and get that train, Wayne. Otherwise, there's a lot of high-speed trains in Spain now, and I don't know what to say about that. Go and walk across Spain or bike instead. Coge la bici. Okay. Luke, I am struggling with... actually, there's something I wanted to pick up here. Dodo in the chat says, a mí me gusta como Ben dice no al final de las frases cuando habla inglés. Muy español, ¿no? So yeah, Dodo's noticed that my English has deteriorated after 26 or 27 years in Spain, and I now say no at the end of sentences.
Mira, por aquí también nos preguntan, what percent of Spanish or English do you use together? My wife is Spanish, but we use English about 90% of the time.
These days, 50-50?
A bit more Spanish, yes.
Yeah, we speak more Spanish at home.
But we used to mix a lot.
We used to mix in sentences. And then our kids were born and we realized we ought to be a bit more
needed to separate
consistent for their sake. But yeah, much more Spanish.
It's not strange to see that or hear that in our house, like a phrase in English end up with a Spanish word.
Yeah. But if I moved back to the UK one day, I would have to work on improving my English just a little bit. It's still pretty good, but to get rid of the not at the end of sentences. Chris says, use coaches. Quite right. If you want to go more slowly around Spain, get on buses or coaches. It's another very good way to do that, yeah. Right, Luke. I'm struggling with structuring intercambio sessions with my 3 Spanish friends.
Lucky you, Luke.
We've been talking for over a year. have visited each other in person, but I still default to speaking in English because I want to catch up on the conversation, I guess, or with them.
On live.
Do you have any advice on structuring a session with Spanish friends? Okay. With friends, it might be more complicated because, as you say, you just want to catch up. You just want to communicate. And communication is key, and you're going to default to the easiest language.
Decimos que la comunicación premia. Al final es lo más importante. Y en este caso, si el inglés os facilita la comunicación, es que no hay nada que hacer.
Yeah, if English is making it easier to catch up with friends, then it's difficult because, communication is the number one thing you want.
Y también es posible que en este caso tus amigos hablen inglés, por lo que, a ver, no lo sé seguro, pero por lo que nos dices que eres beginner, te defines como beginner, a un nivel beginner es muy difícil mantener una conversación.
Look, so it's difficult. You put down that you're a beginner in the questionnaire where you left a question. Work on your Spanish for a start. Listen, and very soon you'll be intermediate and then advanced, and then it can all be done in Spanish. Also, just force yourself to stay in Spanish. That will help you improve a lot. So, a related question: how to
for
structure...
a short period of time? Yes, try to stay in Spanish for a short period of time, even if then you have to switch to English to be able to communicate with your friends.
So maybe, say I'm going to really make an effort and do 5 minutes in Spanish this time. Next time, 7 minutes. Sort of a good question linked to this is, how do you structure an intercambio session? Because people say, I'm going to get an intercambio, I won't know what to talk about. So if anyone's got any advice on that, please stick it in the chat because it's a very common question. What we would say is you pick a film, a book, an article, something interesting you found online, a TED Talk, a short YouTube video. You both watch it before the session and then you discuss it in the session, dividing your time equally between English and Spanish. And it always helps if your language level is kind of similar. Otherwise, it's very easy to default to whoever has the strongest foreign language. So if anyone's got other advice on how to structure an intercambio session, please do stick it in the chat. Right. I reckon we've got time for one more question. Let me have a look.
And two, yes, I want to answer to Paul. Yeah.
Let's go to this one. Paul. I'm about 2 years into my Spanish learning, and yes, I've reached the terrible twos, what Americans and Brits often call the period of a child's life between 2 to 3 when parents are at their wits' end. Mostly the answer to anything is no. This describes my current state of Spanish, even with all your encouragement. Do you have any advice? And yes, the truth is that I'm quite a bit older than 2. Okay, so... the terrible twos. It's probably another way of talking about those dreaded plateaus. So, Marina,
sí,
in 1 minute.
Yo tengo una experiencia con esto y es que yo aprendí alemán en la universidad y el primer curso lo hice súper bien y me fue facilísimo. Porque a un nivel de principiante es muy fácil aprender. Pero a mitad del segundo curso tuve una frustración súper grande porque ya... tienes que aprender mucha gramática para poder construir las frases. Y este es el punto en el que puedes flojear y puedes decir, no puedo más.
So the same thing happened to Marina with German, especially when suddenly the German grammar got involved, which is tricky for Spanish people or British people or English speakers. And she found she was in a terrible twos moment. And that you've got to be careful at that point, because it's when you might say, I'm fed up with Spanish, I'm giving up. But as we've said, stick with it and you get off the plateau. Terrible twos, 2-year-olds become 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. Okay, later on you get the terrible 7s or 8s or 14s or whatever. So that are always difficult periods if we carry on with this analogy. But there's also wonderful periods of greatness. So don't give up, carry on. We're gonna leave that question there because there is one more I want to answer. But yeah, Paul, just carry on. David, Marina, in Spanish.
Me parece que aprendo bien por un rato y entonces...
hang on. Entonces es lo que regresa. Vale, so it feels like he's learning well for a while,
Ah,
and
vale.
then he regresa unos
Sí,
meses. So it feels like
tiene
you've
una
gone-
regresión,
feels like
perdóname.
you've jumped back a few months.
Sí. ¿Crees que es como aprendemos? Un día puedes hablar fácilmente y otro día parece que las palabras ya no salen de tu cerebro.
Okay, so it feels like you go forward loads, and then suddenly it's
Mm.
like you've gone back 3 months. Okay, one day you can speak perfectly easily, and the next day it feels like the words aren't in your brain anymore. Okay, anyone else feel this? You can say yes in the chat, or no. You never feel like you've slid back.
It still happens at an advanced level, I think.
Okay,
When
the
your
answer
brain
is
doesn't work.
it happens at every level. And do you know what? Come on, it happens in your own language. There's days when you wake up and you can't remember anything, or you just feel like, I don't know, you're a bit dopey and you just feel like your brain is slow and you just can't remember things. So this happens a lot. You've got to remember that sometimes we're not perfect in our own language. So imagine a foreign language. So you can forgive yourself. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, completely common. It happens when you're learning anything. So don't worry about it. Eventually it all catches up. Then you go forward a lot, you slip back a bit, you go forward a lot. So carry on. But I like that question a lot. Okay, 1 hour is up. We've run out of time. There are more questions that, well, what we'll have to do is save these for another video down the line, I think. But I hope we've covered lots today. Thank you all for being here enormously. We love these sessions, don't we? We really do enjoy them. And we're super grateful for you all being here.
And for all of your questions, yes.
For all your questions. Sorry for those we didn't get to now. We'll try and see, as I say, if we can catch up in the future. And I think the main message is keep enjoying it, keep finding really interesting materials, and never give up. You're all going to end up advanced and fluent. I have no doubt about that.
And listen.
Listen. Okay. As I mentioned, we have the Inner Circle collection. If you want to listen to something super interesting, some of our best videos ever, plus exercises to help you, easy exercises to help you remember all the vocab and so on, then you need to go and check out the Inner Circle collection. It's going to be available for a few days, and we think it will make an enormous difference to your Spanish and get you off those plateaus. So I'm going to put the link in the chat again now. Go and get that. Start enjoying some amazing Spanish deep dive videos, and we will hopefully be seeing you all again on another one of these very soon. ¿Algo más?
Nada más, que paséis muy buena tarde o muy buen día según donde estéis.
Muy bien.
Y nos vemos.
Okay, we'll be sending that link out by email as well soon. And yeah, thank you so much. An absolute pleasure to be joined by all of you wonderful people from so many lovely places. Okay. Hasta pronto.
Hasta luego.